Welcome back to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club and weekly podcast where we play games and brew good conversations together. I'm your host, Jenny Wyndham.
And I'm Joel Thomas.
And I have a book of notes, a spreadsheet of notes, and some insurance checks to cash in. Joel, do you have those things?
You have a literal field notes guide for your field notes of Obra Dinn, and that type of meta play, you gotta respect the hustle. If you're not watching this, Jenny just held up her field notes, insert pocket diary for her experience. Absolutely incredible. I am so eager to hear about your playthrough today. I have already learned just from a bit of our conversation that there are substantial parts of the ending that I did not experience, and I can't wait to learn more about this game.
Wait, with 6 fates, you missed out on a part of the experience.
It turns out when you cheat yourself, and that it's like when your teacher's like, the only person you're cheating is yourself. That's me. I'm the child in the corner with the dunce cap on that was caught using Chat GPT to take their exam.
No.
That's me right now.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm excited. When I finished the game, I was really excited because we did have such different play styles going through it. And so now that I've gone through all of the chapters, I'm just really looking forward to hearing how you went through it and what you thought of the ending in particular, and what are some of the ties and things that you took away after playing, because I think, based on what I got and versus what you got, I think we're going to maybe have pretty different experiences and responses, but I'm not sure. Maybe we both get to the same place, different paths, same destination kind of thing.
I have a feeling that what we're going to experience is Joel is going to tell you the rumor that he heard about the end of the game based on his playthrough experience, and then Jenny's going to be like, that's not what happened. This is what happened. So happy to contribute to the rumor mill today.
Oh, I'm excited. The rumor mill is fun.
Yeah.
We love fun. So if you're new to the podcast or if you need a refresher, each month we play a game and deep dive it. This month we've been playing Return of the Obra Dinn, or as we like to call it, Return of the Obra Dinn.
Yes.
I mentally prepped for that before the show. I will let you all know. I had to redeem myself. Honestly.
It was flawless last time. The Discord was filled with people just complimenting you on how well you did your pirate accent.
I appreciate you attempting to uplift my spirits and be kind about it. I understand my weakness. Pirate accent, weakness, but that's okay. We all try. We continue, and
we're gonna set some smart goals around it and move forward.
Yeah, exactly. So we've been playing Obra Dinn. It's been wonderful. Getting some of the notes from folks who are subscribed to the newsletter, responding with your own thoughts of the game, seeing the discussion in the Discord. We're going to be sharing our final thoughts on the last section of the game today. So if you haven't joined us and you're wanting to start from the beginning, go back like 2 episodes and you will be at the start. But just to let you know, today is the finale, the full spoiler cast, everything on the table, everything in the book, as they say. But before that, we're going to head to the Pastry Case, where we talk about just a grab bag of topics, news, things that we're up to, and things from the game industry. And I do have some showcases I wanted to just highlight, because we're getting into one of my favorite times of year, but also one of the busiest times of year in the industry, which is Summer Game Fest, the beginning of June. Joel, have you like paid attention to any of this yet? Or are you just like, I'm going to just wait till it happens. I'm just going to let everything happen and just enjoy it.
I'm one of the people that's like, a friend of mine posted about a game that they're excited about. Let me click into that. And then I learned that a fest has happened. And then I kind of scroll through and like learn about what's going on. But I'm eager to hear like things that you're excited for, like any particular showcases you want to highlight. What's looking good right now?
Yeah, so Summer Game Fest, just as a reminder in case anyone is new to like this time of year in the game industry, Summer Game Fest is technically one specific event that is hosted by Jeff Keighley that is the sort of E3 replacement, if you will. It is what filled the gap in the space when E3 left, and that is to highlight a bunch of announcements, world premieres, new shiny games coming up in the industry. And usually it's focused on AAA titles or like the bigger, more highly budgeted titles in the industry. So that's really cool. But what's also nice is that as the showcase has continued, a lot of indie showcases have popped up around it. I'm part of one of the groups that hosts one of the showcases, the Wholesome Games showcase. Yay, the Wholesome Direct is what it's called officially. Yeah, I'm excited. So we've been doing that alongside Summer Game Fest since 2020. And there are a bunch of other showcases, LAGS, which is Latin American Games, Women-Led Showcase. I think this year there's Southeast Asian Game Showcase happening, as well as the Frosty Game Showcase, which is Australian-based games. So I love seeing all of these regional indie showcases happening to feature developers during this really busy time. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. I think the Mix, they are also having a showcase around this time frame as well. So there's a bunch of them. And so there will be, I think there will be a resource available. If not, I will just create one real quick, but I will link it in the newsletter that has all of the like dates, times. Most everything is happening Saturday, June 7th, starting at 9 a.m. Pacific, going all day. Just plant yourself in front of the TV, in front of the, all day, in front of the computer, and you can just enjoy seeing all of these really cool announcements. And so we get Summer Game Fest, which happens on the Thursday. The indie showcases are primarily on Saturday, and there will be stuff sprinkled around there, but it's an exciting time.
Very, very cool. I do always enjoy the Wholesome Game experience. When we think about the AAA game, Game Fest, let's just ask this question of ourselves. Did Expedition 33 get a slot in Game Fest last year?
In Summer Game Fest, I can't remember if it announced during a Summer Game Fest or a Game Awards. I'm trying to remember because this was actually one of like the last announcements at Kepler that I was a part of before I headed out. And I think it maybe was a Game Awards, but I'm not sure. So don't quote me. So I know that Expedition 33 has participated in one of the Keighley Fests at some point, which makes it unique because, again, Expedition 33, to me, technically, is an indie game. I know there has been discourse on that and debate on that, but for me, it's an independent studio. They creatively are independent, so for me, indie game, regardless of team size, budget to an extent, you know. So it's kind of cool that they were featured on a platform like that because really only a select few of indie games get that kind of a platform ever. So
I just keep coming back to like, 1,000 Times Resist, Expedition 33, like Baldur's Gate 3 even, like how kind of ignored these types of games get in a lot of these like big high production settings and how powerful they end up being among audiences. And I there's like a little bit of like, I don't know if it's like Schadenfreude or what, but like a little bit of like, yeah, this is what happens when you ignore like powerful games with great storytelling just because they don't have billions of dollars to throw your way to spotlight them on these platforms. Like at the end of the day, this is the classic product manager perspective. The market always wins. So this is my moment to say like, I'm interested in these game fests. I'm also a little bit like, well, let's see what's happening on the periphery of that a little bit.
Yeah, I think they serve different audiences. Like I think for me, I am just much more interested in what is happening in the indie scene, and I'm more excited by it personally. I think the big AAA stuff is exciting. I just find often they're not telling the stories that I'm most interested in. At the same time, there's some pretty cool announcements, and I think it seems like the Summer Game Fest organizers are aware of wanting to both broaden some of what they bring in to attract audiences, but understanding also that the indie showcases are serving that purpose. And so I think to their credit and benefit, they are allowing the indie showcases the opportunity to like join in. Like we get to say we're officially, because we communicate with Jeff Keighley and we get to say, hey, we're part of the Summer Game Fest
cool.
like
I didn't realize
festivities.
that.
Yeah, I don't know if every showcase, I don't think every showcase is, but a lot of them are like associated specifically. So it is a intentional thing, I think, for Jeff to say, all right, whether you can argue the pros and cons of this, but he does have an awareness of like, okay, the indie showcases are happening. I'm going to help promote those, and that'll be kind of the way that I support indies versus having a indie section in the Summer Game Fest, which for him and the sponsors that he wants and acquires and the games that he's representing and the audience he's serving may not be as excited about indies anyways. So
I didn't realize that. I actually think that is a pretty interesting model to consider. And something about like letting the communities that are most engaged by these types of releases speak for themselves. I can appreciate that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So there's a balance. I would never be sad if he chose to spotlight an indie game because he has that huge platform. But I think there's also a recognition of like, these are different purposes. These are different showcase types and audience types. So I think, there's facets to all of this. But yeah, Summer Game Fest is happening. We haven't even talked about, because I don't think, you didn't pre-order Switch 2 yet,
tried.
Right? You tried.
Still haven't been able
Still
to.
haven't. Yeah. And so it's like, what's kind of wild is this Summer Game Fest is going to be preceded by the Switch 2 launch. And so we're going to have Switch 2 launch. We're going to have Summer Game Fest. All of the showcases aligned with Summer Game Fest. And then the week after that, June 9th through the 16th, is Steam Next Fest, which is our quarterly celebration of game demos, essentially, of upcoming games within the next year or so. And so that means we're probably going to have an episode dedicated to the demos we've tried. Keep an ear out. I will be requesting recommendations from folks in the community. And if you would like, I'm putting the seeds out there. If you'd like to leave a voicemail sharing a demo that you played during the Next Fest, I'll have the dates for that so that you can submit that ahead of the podcast recording and editing so that you can get your recommendation in the show.
I feel like I need a new strategy for Next Fest this season. I need like a find a buddy that has, y'all have been listening, like the types of things I jive with. I need a buddy that's willing to be like, Joel, here are the games that I think you're going to like, and here are a couple games I think you're going to hate because I want to spice things up. Just because I need a little bit more direction in Next Fest. Otherwise, I just end up spiraling into the games. It's like, this one doesn't work. This one, no one's talking about, and you don't know if it's worth talking. I need a new strategy this year, so something needs to change.
Hopping into the thread earlier, because I think you've typically hopped in later, but folks do a pretty good job posting the demos that they're playing and sort of initial thoughts. And so if you hop in a little bit sooner, I think that may be beneficial to your strategy.
We'll see. Last time I feel like I was in there at the very beginning and I was like, well, this is the only day I have to play. And there hadn't been anything that people had had time to sink into yet. And so it's just if I only have one afternoon and to play, where is that gonna fall? So that's part of the challenge too.
That is challenging. I will say one of the things I've learned from talking with Steam reps and learning about how their algorithm is currently designed to essentially curate the games for you. Playing games or finding games on the first day is probably the most Wild West chaos kind of day. So if you are struggling to find games during Steam Next Fest, because it takes about a day or two to intake what are people playing, what is resonating versus what's not, wait until maybe this third day, the second half
That is great
of the fest.
Advice.
So if you are if you're like Joel, you have limited time, You're not wanting to waste time on bad demos, or demos that don't resonate with you. Maybe they're not bad. Maybe they just don't jive with you. Wait till mid next fest, then go in, because that will have filtered through a good chunk of the games. And then from there, you can go and see what is most popular in terms of the duration of the fest so far. And it'll be a little bit more accurate, because the first 2 days are kind of the trending and the ranking kind of go all over the place, because the algorithm is still trying to figure out what people are really resonating with.
It's also like in the way that you like navigate on like the Steam Deck, for example, through the demos, the first day, anytime you are like looking at the page, everything has refreshed. And so it's like, well, I wanted to, like, there were 3 demos that I just saw that I'm curious about. I can only open one demo at a time. And when I go back, I cannot find the demo that I was just seeing anymore. So it's like that sorting issue. So, but I think also too, like maybe like going through my laptop instead of like just for demo season, instead of going through the Steam Deck, might be a good way to solve some of that as well. So.
Yeah. I typically do it on desktop, and that's nice because it won't do the refresh thing. So you can at least keep a running list and not have it refresh and make you lose track of what you've been looking at.
Some excellent advice for the casual person trying to get into Next Fest.
Yeah, it's an intense event. And if you don't know, even if you do know how to navigate Steam, it's an intense event. So, yeah, I think I'm excited. I'm hoping to discover some new games, because I feel like my wish list, I still have a hefty wish list, but a lot of my games that I've been excited about have recently launched. And so I'm kind of ready to look for the next things to anticipate.
The next wave. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing what crops up. 1,000 Times Resist was a Next Fest discovery for me, so the next 1,000 Times Resist is what I'm hoping for.
I think now the bar has been set.
Yeah, just little goals, like the next best game of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
What have you been up to aside from playing Obra Dinn?
Y'all, Expedition 33 is so good. It is so good. I haven't been this passionate about a game in so long, like probably over a year. Like I'm just so thoroughly enjoying it. Like I finished Act 1 last week, and I did the same thing that I did in like Elden Ring, where it's like, well, the world is open in Baldur's Gate. I'm going to spend hours and hours just like finding every secret that I can. But to the point that like when I got to Act 2, I was like severely over leveled by the time I got there. But like I couldn't even use a lot of the techniques that I had like earned, because the characters, like the baddies, would die halfway through the first round. It's like, well, okay. But honestly, like having a great time, like no matter where you are in the game, you can find like optional bosses that are extremely challenging. So that's been very cool, to the point, and I like zero spoilers here, but I met a character known as the dance teacher this weekend, who's basically trying to train you on the rhythm of parrying. And I am like 88 tries in to the dance teacher little mini game thing, and I still haven't done it. It's like I'm trying. Tonight is the night I'm gonna like try and just like get through this thing. It's not particularly hard, but like it just requires you to be like really focused. And it has just so thoroughly captured that like reward sense. Oh, I was gonna say this. It reminds me of, do you remember when Breath of the Wild came out, and like we were talking about it, how even though like the game can feel very heavy, they have done something with the reward mechanism where it's like, that tree looks pretty cool. I'm going to climb to the top of that. And like, sure enough, there's a Korok there. And like, that rock is like pretty cool. I'm going to climb to the top of that. Sure enough, there's a Korok there. I feel that same sense of like discovery plus reward constantly with Expedition. There's like, I bet if I go around this corner, there's going to be a little something there. And sure enough, there's a little something there. I just, they've nailed it. I'm in love. I'm in love with the game.
I'm right there with you. So I thought, I even texted you, I was like, this is the weekend. I'm going to finish Act 1. I'm so excited. I'm so ready. It's going to happen. Reader, she did not finish Act 1. No, because the same thing happened though, where I essentially got to a point where I had some story beats that I had done. I had the opportunity, because the map has been opened up for me, to explore a little bit. And once I started exploring, I didn't want to stop. And I found so many fun, challenging little pockets of things to do. I had a mini beach episode for the first time where I got to go to, there's a beach obstacle course opportunity for anyone who's played. That took me an embarrassing amount of time.
Did you do it?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I sat there until I did it because I'm stubborn and a bit of a masochist, I'm learning.
No matter how much I wanted Lune's bathing suit to be unlocked, there was just not enough motivation for me to like continue in that effort. Like I literally couldn't get past like the second plank after my like 6th try. And I was like, I understand. I get it. I appreciate what's happening here. There are more rewarding experiences I can find.
I can come over at some point and just do the obstacle course for you, so you can unlock the swimsuit so you have it for later.
That's all I want.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because, like, again, I think I talked about it last week, where I typically am not a person who 100% things. I'm typically not a person who tries to unlock all the stuff. And I don't think I will even do that for this game, but it has unlocked something in me where I really want to get good at the parrying. I'm really enjoying the challenge of parrying and earning the combo and counterattack sort of moments that you get when you do perfects in a row. And the things like the obstacle course are just other challenges that scratch the exact itch in my brain, where not only do I want to be good at them and achieve them, but the game also resets quickly enough that I don't feel punished for trying again.
Yes.
So I appreciate that so much.
And a lot of times it like just sets you right outside of the boss that you were just fighting or whatever. Like I found like an optional experience, and like the puzzle aspect I don't think should be undersold here. Like you have like the patanks, right? These little guys that like there's a puzzle to fighting them. Like this patank is going to have 15 shields that you have to take out before he'll take any damage, and he's going to be gone in 3 rounds. So how are you going to deal with that? I found another optional boss that has kind of a similar thing where it's like after the 3rd or 4th round, you cannot hurt him anymore. And so it's like, well, you might be able to parry for days and days. Like you might have every attack memorized from this dude, but you can't hurt him anymore after this. And so you need to completely change your selected strategy to do as much early damage as possible, which is very different than how you're going to deal with other bosses. Like they reward that. And oh man, another big thing is like, respecing your character in a lot of games is something that is rare and hard to unlock, and you get these recoats. And I was like, I hadn't used any of them, and I'm early into Act 2, and I was like, I have 15 recoats right now. I haven't used any of them, and I need like 4 more levels to unlock this other skill. And there are all these other skills I never use. Like they just sit in my backlog. I never will use them. And so it's like, oh, I'm going to respec. And I did. And it's like, oh, now I have this like incredible power. And like, that is like a complete inversion of how a lot of these games work. Like in Elden Ring, you could play the entire set through and get a total of like 5 or 6 respecs. 15 in the first act is banana pants. Like, love it.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's basically sort of our mini cast inside this Geeks and Groundscast, because we have both been playing it, and every week I am not finding myself getting sick of it. I am impressed at the way that it has taken over my brain, your brain, everyone's brain. I think they hit 3.3 million copies already, in just a few weeks. So this is absolutely a moment in gaming right now, and it's so cool, and it's really fun and exciting to be a part of it and playing the game as it's happening. It's just been very fun.
We love. So cool.
Yeah, we love.
What else have you been engaging with?
I did want to shout out a demo that I played, and it's on the channel if anyone wants to watch. It's called To a T. It's by the creative director of Katamari Damacy, which is one of the best games ever. If you haven't seen that, you should absolutely go pick up, I think, Katamari Damacy Reroll is the remake that they did on Switch, and I think it's on Steam. All you are is a prince rolling up a ball of everyday objects, and eventually it gets bigger and bigger, and you start rolling up bigger objects and people and buildings to make a star to put into the sky. It makes no sense, but it's amazing.
Beautiful.
So this person is leading, I don't believe it's a solo dev game. I think he's just the lead and sort of like the name that they're using to hook people. But this game is called To a T. And it's about a character, and you can pick and customize your character, but this character is stuck in a T-pose, like the video game T-pose, the animation T-pose, and has to navigate life with that challenge. And so it's really cute, really wholesome, like in all senses of the word. It feels just so heartwarming to play. The demo itself took you through a day in the life of this character. And so for me, it was this little girl. She's in like middle school maybe, and you have to help her brush her teeth and wash her face. And, you know, there are all these accommodations that have been made for her in her house by her mom to do that. So that in itself is like really cool to see in a game. This idea of like, hey, accessibility, it can happen. It's not that hard. And when you play later in the demo, you have her go outside, and it's her first day of school. It's her birthday. And it's really exciting, but you find out, you know, not everyone in this world is stuck in the T-pose. It is the exception rather than the rule. And so she deals, it seems like, with some bullying. And the game's demo, you know, stopped there. It was very short, maybe 30 minutes, but it alluded to a lot that I'm really excited for. So that's the other thing that I played this week that I was really excited about. And then I watched, I thought of you, and I was so excited to tell you, I watched Dropout, an episode of Game Changer. It was the latest one. And the premise, it was with, who were
Joshua Johnson and a bunch of other, the comedians.
It was the one where it was Zach, Ali, and
the Bits episode with Lisa Gilroy.
Lisa, yes. Maybe it isn't the latest. It was the latest according to like whatever was popping up for me. Where the challenge in the game for Game Changers is they had to do everything sincerely and not make it a bit.
No bits.
And as comedians, you know, their whole premise is they go up on stage and do bits. And it was one of the best episodes of Game Changers I think I've ever seen.
I fully agree.
It was so good.
Yes. Yeah. It was like God. They captured something, and like, I don't know, the like, imagine a world like you have these three improv comics and only one of them has to be insincere. Like the other two can be cracking jokes or whatever, but like the sincerity of that moment, like, kind of elevates the type of jokes or humor that the other two were bringing. Like, wow, it was so good.
It was really good. And it just, it made me appreciate, and these three were the perfect selection for this premise. And these are three of my favorite people that they have on the show too. So it was just an absolute treat for me. And at the very end, they show it in the thumbnail and in sort of the trailer for this show. So it's, I'm not going to consider it spoilers, but they do a dance in a very specific costume, and I was cracking up the whole time, partially because it's funny, and I'm not going to say the costume because you just got to see it. It's so good. The visual comedy is outstanding, but the fact that they're doing the dance sincerely,
it's good,
and it's good.
It's good.
Oh my God, yeah. So
stunning, absolutely stunning.
It was great. Like, I think I have a lower tolerance for like the improv comedy stuff. Like, I can do it in small doses, and I have very specific like people that I really enjoy watching. And it was just, it was like, this is what I come here for. And it was perfect.
It's fascinating. I just watched the behind the scenes yesterday of the most recent episode, which is like, they had a bunch of actual stand-up comedians. So no one from the normal cast. They had three stand-up comedians come on. And the premise was they had a live studio audience with people wearing shirts of like unique things about them. And they had the 3 improv comedians go in rounds to do like crowd work. So like engaging with the audience and like talking about things. And I won't say more than that because if you watch, I don't want to spoil it for you, but like every round, like they slightly change what's going on with the crowd work. And it was phenomenal. Also,
that's great.
Joshua Johnson is on. He's one of my absolute favorite comedians right now. He's also on The Daily Show, and I think he's just one of the smartest people in the game these days. So
he's great.
A high recommendation for me on that episode for sure.
I'll have to check that one. That sounds great because crowd work is one of those things where it can go so horribly wrong, but also so horribly right. You know what I mean? And I would be excited to see some of the dropout crew and the people they bring in do that kind of challenge. So that's cool.
And it's interesting because it's like the crowd is filled with people who kind of are in the fandom of the dropout world. So like it says a lot about the types of people that are going to be coming in and kind of the diversity that you might expect there. And the comedians, like, I don't know how many of them had ever even heard of Dropout before this show. And so you know, crowd work can sometimes be really derogatory. And so like position this is like, actually your thing is not the butt of the joke. Your thing is where we're going to be working together. Like me and like you and the audience member are going to be working together to like derive humor from the situation. And I just think like that is a really compelling form of comedy. Like just not something I've seen done at scale like that before. So
yeah, I also feel like that's maybe, I don't know, I haven't watched as much as you, so maybe they've done something like this before, but I haven't ever seen an episode where they brought in like a live audience like that. No. So that's also really cool that they seem to be pushing themselves as a channel to explore just different ways of doing comedy. Because I think honestly a lot of their shows would benefit from a live audience. I think it would feed the energy of the performers a bit in a way that I don't know, it's hard to do with like, you think like Whose Line Is Anyway, right? It's kind of like the improv show that I was raised on, like had a live audience and they would feed off the energy of the audience. I think that's a missing ingredient in some of the Dropout shows. So yeah.
What
have you been watching?
Yeah, I'll just call it a couple things here. One, I am watching season 2 of Conan O'Brien Must Go, where basically like people call into his podcast, invite him to their countries, and then he goes out and like does silly Conan bits in their countries. And I didn't watch much of the first season. It didn't really land for me. But season 2 it's like they kind of have dialed in like how to express and like engage with the countries and what's going on there. And so that's been very, very fun. And God, Andor, I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna walk away. I think Andor is a top 5 television series for me of all time, and like it just continues to deliver week after week after week, and I just could not recommend it more highly.
I have been hearing, and I actually had another friend send me a very long text message about Andor. She was just like, you don't understand like the stuff that they're doing in this show. I know you're not a Star Wars person. I know, I get it, but you must give it another chance. Because I think I watched the first episode, and I think for whatever reason, I was just kind of like, it's better than the other Star Wars I've seen, but it's not catching me. So I kind of just left it. But especially with the second season and some of the clips that my friend, she sent me, she's really trying to get me to watch the show. And so I think I might give it another chance. Because, I've only heard good things.
If I may. So they released the first 2 or 3 episodes the first time when it initially dropped.
Yeah.
And I think it does a lot of favors for the show to watch the first 2 episodes back to back, like because it kind of like that is what you need to actually have the setup for what this season's going to be about. And without that, because I experienced this watching this with my partner recently, is like it's hard after the first episode to go back, because it's like, okay, I'm interested, but it doesn't quite hit that threshold.
Yeah. It was so close.
Yeah.
I was like, you're almost there.
Yep.
and maybe if I have spare time, and then I never had spare time,
And the other thing, and I had forgotten about this until I was doing like the rewatch, is most of the episodes are 40 minutes or less. And so you think about like a lot of the prestige dramas, like HBO shows, they're almost always like a full hour long. So it's like a serious commitment. Somehow this show sets atmosphere. It has a strong series of political messages, really interesting character development, and it does it in under 40 minutes per week. Like that's cool. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, y'all. As a person that is has a hard time getting like time for things. Yeah, pretty good.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to report back once I get started on that.
Yes. We're gonna get her there, ladies and gents.
Let's see. Anything else, or is that
that's pretty much it right now?
Awesome. So just to close out the pastry case, a couple of notable releases this week. There are plenty of games that release every week. We're not going to cover all of them, but I always like to try and highlight a couple, like literally two, to just let you know what's out there and what's really good to play potentially, because maybe I haven't played them, but I've played both of these. So I can say both of these are good recommendations, if I do say so myself. The first is Kabuto Park. This is a game that is coming out on May 28th on Steam. I should check. It may be coming out on Nintendo Switch. I think it may just start out on Steam, but if it's not coming out to the Nintendo Switch now, I feel like it absolutely should, because it is a Switch. You look at it and it's a Switch game. It's just no doubt about it. Okay, it's just, I think, PC, Linux, and Mac. So Linux and Mac for all you folks out there who enjoy Linux and Mac. But Kabuto Park is a very simplified version of Pokemon, I would say. You're a kid, you're catching bugs during the summertime. It perfectly captures that sort of golden summer bubble that you may have had when you were a kid, where it's like the days just seem like they go on forever. The weather is perfect. You can hear cicadas and the trees and the rustling of the leaves. And the mechanic is you go to a location. Whoops, sorry, I hit the mic. You go to a location, you can find different bugs, and then you can put them in little matches against other bug catchers, and they're like little sort of shoving sumo matches where you're just trying to push the other bug team off of this like tambourine that you're standing on. So it's not like you're actually battling the bugs to the death or anything. They're just pushing each other a little bit. Very cute game. It's by the folks who made Manami Lane. So that's also a really good game if you haven't checked that out. And if you know of Manami Lane, you know that this is going to be another short, sweet experience that's just choice. And they announced today that it's going to be $5 USD. So they also keep these games really accessible from a cost perspective too, which I think is appreciated by a lot of the community. The next game is one I already talked about, so I don't have to tell you too much more about it. It's called To a T, and it is launching on May 28th as well. So again, wholesome slice of life, heartfelt, sincere story about a kid whose arms are stuck in the T pose position, and what it's like to navigate life like that. All right. As always, you can subscribe to the newsletter where there are links to everything we talked about, and this podcast helps you avoid the social media algorithms and just let it go straight to your inbox so that you have everything in one place. And you can subscribe to the newsletter at geeksandgrounds.com. Now on to this month's brew, the final taste that we're going to have of Obra Dinn before we retire this cup, I guess, so to speak. Oh, we're in the home stretch, and there's a lot we got to cover today.
There is so much that happens in the end game here, and like it comes like some might say a tidal wave, in fact. We talked about kind of the slow drip of information last week, like our very first week, like all you know is you're an insurance adjuster, there's a captain and there's a mutiny, and you have the captain's partner was aboard, and there's a kraken, and that's really all we got in that like first week. Last week we learned, okay, like there's been a murder aboard. There's like some seashell of extreme value. There seems to be something driving violence. We learned that there are these horrific eldritch monsters of the sea that have come aboard and spiked and killed a whole bunch of people. Lightning has cracked the ship itself. And we're kind of left at this point wondering, how did all of this kick off? And I just feel like the whole ending of this game, I think this is actually like, again, I was kind of I didn't realize I was ending the game when I did, which was prematurely. But I think part of the reason that happened is because the pace of the rest of this game happens so fast, and you're just like going like, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened, and it's a lot, but like one of the most enjoyable, like pacing wise, like game experiences I've had in a very long time.
I agree. I think, especially coming off of the last game we played, where I think both of us had struggles with the pacing and the way that the narrative essentially kind of fell through. This was such a refreshing change of pace, because I did feel like, which as an aside, kind of astounding, because you can find these chapters in any order, and we found them in different orders, and yet we both felt like the pacing and sort of the way we've gained the knowledge was compelling, and the momentum was there. Because I agree, and I know we didn't play it in the same order, so I think that's really cool, because what happened was the first 3 chapters I played, like you said, you're like, I'm going to trust the game. We're along for the ride. Nothing is really, like, something big has happened, but we have no idea, and nothing has really told us what's happened. Second major section of chapters, all of this action is happening. And really, by the end of those chapters that we discussed last week, I was thinking why and how. Because those are the things we still do not know. Why is this happening, and how did this come to be? And what was great is that these final, 4 chapters in the sort of main portion of the game really do address the how. And I think as players, we are given the opportunity to put in the why. I still don't think the game puts in the why a ton. I think it trusts the players to make and connect the dots of the why, which I think one of the chapters I got, which is chapter 8, which we'll talk about, gave us a lot of context that I'm really curious now to see what happens. Like, since you didn't get that chapter, how did you fill in the gaps, and what did you think in terms of like the context or the why? And all of that?
So let's get up to chapter 8, and then I'll fill in like what the rumor mill had to say, and then we can learn what you actually figured out along the way.
Cool. Just to follow the pacing or the chapters that we have been doing, since the start, we're going to start our discussion going out of order and going in the order in which I discovered the chapters, because Joel finished the game first, so he had the most context on what's going on. And then at the very end, I think it would be nice if we did a chronological like synopsis / retelling, which would allow us to fill in sort of the whys that we probably can't get to as effectively when we talk about the chapters individually out of order.
Excellent.
Possibly.
Sounds good.
So we begin at chapter 2 today, titled A Bitter Cold. And I think you had mentioned last week that this chapter felt out of place and a little bit odd, especially in the context of the other chapters that we discussed. Like, I think it was like chapter 9. Chapter 9, chapter 3, chapter 6. I will say I do agree. A Bitter Cold, chapter 2, felt very, all right. Bad things happened. I mean, broadly, like, you learn that there has been some sort of disease aboard, and it seems like it affected how people breathe. A couple folks died. An animal, maybe like a goat or something. Like a goat or a cow.
Oh, cow. Yeah, I think maybe it was a cow.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, I went through all this and I was like, because I got this earlier in general in my progression and playthrough, and I was just like, I don't understand what is why this is being included. But now that we've kind of like had a chance to step back, and like, this is again always the benefit of this kind of podcast and like replay conversation experience, the thing that stands out to me about it is, if we accept that crew members, pirates, etc., are a very superstitious lot. This does strike me as like, oh, this could be Omen. Like, this is like how I would expect people at the beginning of the pirate movie, where like one small bad thing happens to be like, oh, it's an omen, and the mistress of the sea, she is angry. Like, that is kind of like the one thing that's like, oh, that might kind of help me connect some dots here for like why it was included. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I assumed as well. Like, sailors are a superstitious lot, pirate or just regular sailors. I feel like even when you're on a boat nowadays, there are just things that, there are these traditions that people uphold, and some of them are, taken more seriously because just that's sort of, it seems, I'm not a boat person, but it seems sort of like the subculture of boat folks and sailors are into that kind of stuff, where it's more meaningful. So I agree, especially when we talk about like chapter 1 in particular. Chapter 1 and 2 both establish almost that this journey was ill-fated from the start.
Yeah.
Good things seem to not ever really happen on this ship. So I think that just reinforced that for me.
Yeah, I fully agree. And, the other thing that kind of strikes me about this is where it shows up, I think causes you to want to just kind of disregard and move through it quickly. Like, if you think about where we left off at the last podcast, like we had just been introduced to the Eldritch Horror crab riders.
Right.
So going from that into a bitter cold is just like, wait, what? But the crab riders, like, why am I learning about a goat dying? I crab riders. So maybe that's part of it too. Is just like where it happens to show up in your playthrough could change how you engage with it.
Yeah, possibly. I'm trying to think of who, because I did make a note that there was one person who did not have the stomach for butchering an animal, and I think the way they presented it was like, it was slightly comedic because this guy's getting ready. He's like getting ready to puke, and someone says, "Watch your shoes," and for the blood and possibly you throwing up and things like that. So I thought that was also funny, and I should have written down who it was they were referring to, because maybe that's also a bit of a clue for something later. But it was more just a little comic moment for me, I think.
Yes, I think there's a bit of comedy in that for sure, which makes sense. The stakes are lower. It's only chapter 2.
Yep. And so from a bitter cold, which for me was just more establishing like atmosphere more than anything, we have chapter 5, Unholy Captives. And my first question when that chapter came up was, what do they mean by unholy? Who is unholy? Who are the captives? Are we talking about spider crabs? Are we talking about the kraken? Like, what are we referring to here? And in this, we have God, my handwriting is so bad. I wrote chest and deal.
Oh, the
Formation. Yeah.
Probably the Formosans.
The Formosans knew it was dangerous. What was I talking about? Do you happen to have your synopsis?
Yeah. So in this is where we start to connect the dots that like, yes, our theory was correct.
Oh, yes.
The thing inside the chest is in fact somehow connected to all of these monstrosities that are occurring.
Yes.
Yeah. So was that jogging?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes. And what is interesting is we get our, I think, third sort of unholy, I guess you could refer them as unholy creature or beast, which are these spiked mermaids that
nightmare
at first,
fuel.
Nightmare fuel, but also kind of cool, but definitely
For sure.
nightmare fuel. But these mermaids, the intro to this scene is, I think the cook gets slapped in the face with the tail, and that's actually what kills him because the spikes on the tail get him. And we see in some later chapters, it kind of starts this chain reaction of doom.
Yes.
Which, again, kind of, it's not funny, but it's a little funny. I feel like the dark humor of that chain reaction was a little bit comedic to me.
Yeah, I feel like I think this chapter had a lot of irony kind of built
Yeah.
into it. Like, isn't there the part where there's like, this is where there's like a carpenter and someone also gets hit and killed by a thing of like a log of wood or something like
Yeah,
that.
well, they were
Like,
carrying like a stretcher downstairs, and then this other person, because the cook gets hit in the face or whatever with the fish, he trips over another person and they fall, and then he gets like impaled through the head with the handle of the stretcher. Like, it is so, again, it is gruesome, but it's a little funny. It's got the dark humor.
yeah, we might say that there is a bit of a uh, everything that can go wrong will go wrong
Yeah.
kind of moment here.
Mhm.
I think this is one of those chapters that was like, okay, we had this weird departure into bitter cold, and now I'm back into, okay, cool. I'm seeing like these are the
Yes.
seeds that led to crab monster arrival. Now
Mhm.
what led to this happening? And like, I thought this was a really good chapter as it relates to like building suspense and curiosity. Like, I was
Mhm.
definitely like, what is going on here, that like all these random accidents keep happening? Like, cursed, I suppose would be the word.
Yeah. And I have a note here that I think it was the Formosan or one of the Formosans knew that these mermaids were dangerous. I think another crew member, I wrote down Philip. I don't know if that's true, but Philip also is saying we need to throw these mermaids back. Like, we cannot keep them. We also have someone who has lost their leg, like their leg has gotten chopped off by, I think it ended up being the steward.
Yeah, that
I should
sounds
have brought my
right.
Steam Deck because it has the book. But the steward, the captain steward, like chopped off the leg of one of the other crew members because he's also just like, no, we have to get rid of this. We have to throw them back because we are bringing a curse upon us. And so we're kind of like getting again the seeds of, okay, this is what's really happening that got everything started.
Yes. But also like a relatively short chapter. So again, coming back to the
Mm-hmm.
pacing, like it happens so fast and you're not doing a ton
Yeah.
of like hopping in bodies and bodies in this chapter. So it's just like
Mm-hmm.
this sequence of chapters that we're playing through, they just go fast. And this is
Yep.
one of those experiences.
Yeah, especially 6 was like the really long one for
Yeah.
me, The Soldiers of the Sea. It was really good, but it was hefty. It was 8 parts, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, these went great because I can't remember if it was a Bitter Cold or Unholy Captives. One of them was just 2 deaths, so just 2 parts. I was like, that is so nice. It just feels really good.
You just feel like you're on top of the world. And I think like
Yeah.
really like
Like
it is,
Leonardo DiCaprio
yeah.
on the boat,
Oh,
on the Titanic. There we go.
very good reference. Very good boat reference. I think it's like, come back to the pacing though. It's just like
Hmm.
it lets you as the player know where to be spending your time.
Hmm.
And I think it's just one of those moments that's like, hey, like we're moving you quickly through this on purpose because we
Yep.
know where your curiosity is, and we're just kind of planting those seeds here.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they move us over to chapter 4, The Calling. And this is a longer one. There are more bodies here, not as long as 6, but it's heftier because this is where you learn a lot.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, this is the one that I probably had the most frustration navigating
Mm.
through,
Mhm.
because it was like you have bodies on the ship and you hop
Mhm.
into them to get essentially a flash into them being in lifeboats out to sea. And then
Yeah.
when you're out to sea, you find bodies that let you flash into further moments into flashbacks while they're out to
Yeah.
sea. And so it was hard for me to like keep straight. And this is like where at the end game, I would have liked to be able to like navigate through these memories a bit more cleanly, because it's
Mm.
like, okay, eventually I was able to piece together the sequence of events that occurred out there.
Yeah.
And I think like that's obviously where we'll dig into the conversation, but I noted that this was the moment where I was like, I'm extremely engaged by this. This is to me probably
Mm.
the most interesting chapter of all of them. But it was also one of the most challenging to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah, it was simply because there are just so many bodies, and it felt like the sort of time frame between them were also closer. And so I was trying to also sequence events, and they weren't all in order. And so yeah, it was a little bit more challenging. I loved the fact, though, kind of like the scene where we were up in the rigging with the lightning bolt strike and we had this new perspective on the ship. I loved being in the lifeboats and sort of walking around the ocean.
Yes.
Oh, that felt so cool.
Yes.
So that was just a really neat change in environment.
You're
too.
like literally walking on the water, investigating how people in these like dinghies survived or didn't this experience.
Yes.
So let's get into it. Like, I think some of the things in like, it becomes a little unclear, but you see the bodies of some of the Formosan, like semi-royalty, like not quite sure what their roles are, but you see their bodies aboard the ship. And you hop into them, and you are now in a lifeboat, and you're seeing that the Formosans are perhaps tied up, like they were taken captive, along with the chest that is containing like the seashell or some magical thing. And basically it's like round and round of attacked by mermaid. You can see a mermaid's head poking up out of the water here. A mermaid has like pulled someone over the edge of the lifeboat there. One guy's like, pull out your gun and shoot it. It's okay if you shoot me. Like the conversation is so intense. And I was like, I could feel my eyes just like widening, trying to take it all in and like run around the ships and like, okay, well, who's that guy and what happened to him? And like, is this person being choked or are they being bitten? I can't quite tell. Like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. We'll talk about that, because that got me on a couple of them where I was sure I was right. And then I got to the point where I was sort of forcing and just sort of saying, okay, well, let me just try this different thing because I know that this is close. And yeah, that was one specific, because I think I was saying a character got bit or devoured by a creature, and it turned out that she was getting strangled.
Yep.
So it's just but yeah, this was really interesting because this was the first time that it clicked to me a little bit that so the Formosans were being kidnapped off of the ship with the chest, and the we know the shell is inside this chest. And so before there was even mutiny, there was already some sort of plot, whether they did it ahead of time or they decided when they arrived on the boat and they discovered there was treasure. There's this subgroup of people in the crew who are already divesting from whatever main journey that they're on to meet their own ends, essentially, in more ways than one, I guess. But I think that was the first time it really clicked for me, was this scene, was that there were these people with their own agenda on the ship, aside from the captain.
Am I correct in recalling that this happens like right after or close to after the murder chapter?
This is right after the murder.
Okay, so
if we're looking timeline.
Last episode we talked about the murder where this chest was discovered, someone was trying to steal from it. The Formosan guard catches them in the act. The Formosan guard gets murdered. The crew member blames it on the Formosan. They then, they end up stringing up the Formosan and shooting him to like blame him for the murder of like whoever witnessed the theft crime.
Yes, I think it was the Italian musician person.
I'll trust you on that.
Yeah.
And so this is happening right after that, where this man was falsely accused and shot. Is we see these people out to sea having been taken captive alongside the chest. So it's like, this is where it's like, actually one of my biggest questions is I'd love to know, like, we're in spoiler zone now. Like, what is the connection between this kind of the murder chapter and these people being taken captive and out to sea? Were you able to piece that together?
So this is, and this is where I think the why of the player connecting dots comes in, because I don't think the game explicitly ever says anything, because as the player character, as the insurance collector and adjuster, we don't care. But as the player in real life, we absolutely, well, I think we care.
I care.
So, okay. I ended up, what I did after I played was I had a section where I wrote down each of the chapters in consecutive order and tried to summarize what I thought happened, adding my whys. And so it's like you have the summary here and then the arrows as to like what I think the motive is.
Oh, I love
for
that.
folks who are just listening. I'm holding up a notebook that has scrawled notes on it. And so for murder, let's see. So basically I have that summary. I said that the murder chapter was originally an attempt by those kidnappers and thieves to take that chest. And I don't know if they knew ahead of time whether the chest had riches or if as they boarded the boat they realized they had something cool on their hands and they were willing to take it. But murder is a theft of the chest gone wrong. And so the thieves, in attempting to steal the chest, get caught. They kill the nunzio, who is the musician who happens to pass by in the evening. So he's just like an unfortunate death in that sense. And Edward, the second mate who kills Nunzio, frames one of the Formosans for the murder. Now, because the Formosans speak in, is it Thai, I think? Sure. I forget.
Yep.
They speak basically in a different language. They do not have the benefit of being able to be understood by the rest of the crew. And so whoever translated what the Formosans were saying, either intentionally or not, did not provide an accurate translation of the fact that like he didn't do it and that he was being framed. And so that's why he got framed, is my impression.
I like this. That makes a lot of sense.
Because when the captain takes the confession, he's not able to take it directly from, the defendant. Essentially, he takes it from the translator, who has a vested interest in not revealing that he was part. Because I think Li Hong was the translator, and he was part of the crew who was part of the theft.
Wild.
Yeah. This is what, and I don't know if it's 100% right. This is just what I assume is right based on the stuff that I took notes on.
Okay.
And so the murder went wrong, but they were able to frame someone else. And so they said, all right, we got to get out of here while we can, because now the Formosans know something is up. And so they kidnap the Formosans. And then chapter 4 is when they're attempting to row away in the night. But then the contents of the chest sort of alert the mermaids. And that's when the mermaids come and the disaster truly strikes.
I think it's at this point, because you had called this out, I think, in our first week, that like you can see this kind of glimmering star on the horizon when you are in present day Obra Dinn time. Mm-hmm. And when you are doing that, I think last week we intuited that, well, it's probably like the shell is what is out there, like this sparkly thing. And so to me, this is the moment that kind of locks that in for me, that says like, yeah, like the thing was maybe lost to sea and like it's out there now. And this might be the point that it happened. Was that how you read this part?
Initially, but then when you get into chapter 8, you learn something that I agree it's the shell. I think that is correct, but there is a different reason it is out there, or more context as to why it is visible from the harbor, which would not make sense considering where these events took place. So we'll add that context at the very end.
Yes, I'm so excited. And so is it one chapter left going into Loose Cargo?
Yeah. So Loose Cargo is interesting because that was another kind of like a bitter cold where it felt very almost normal.
We've been having all these supernatural things.
Yeah, these are normal deaths, everybody. It showcases the loading of the ship and all of the accidents that happened during that time period where they're trying to load cargo and people keep dropping stuff. People keep breaking the ropes and dying and being crushed by cargo. There are 2 deaths that begin this journey. We learn that one of them is a stowaway, which is interesting. And the other is the brother to another crew member, which we later, or at least I made the connection because in a later chapter, you hear someone say, "This is for my brother."
Yep.
So that
Right.
was finally the answer that we were looking for as to what happened to that.
I think I did. This is one of the few fates that I was able to piece together, was the brotherly connection there. I like the read that there is this is part of kind of the omen of the ship, that like something afoul is happening here. This is chapter 1, right? So like chronologically, this is the very first thing that happens. And it's also at this point that like when you it's only 2 parts, like it's a pretty short piece.
Yeah.
You flash back to the present and you get the classic video game like, hey, it's time to leave, and it's like raining and like
yeah, the storms are brewing.
yes. And like, so again, like for me, the pace of this chapter and the feeling of like kind of being rushed by the like dinghy guide made me think like, okay, well, I'm going to get off the boat now, and then I'm going to have time to actually sift through all of this stuff, which is how I accidentally finished the game prematurely without solving enough murders.
I really appreciated that actually you highlighted the fact that you get the person, you know, on your sort of rowboat shouting and giving you that signal of the point of no return moment, because I would not have kind of like you, I wouldn't have clocked it as a point of no return except for the fact that you told me. And so when I got that, you know, it's time to get on the boat, you've been here long enough moment, that was when I decided to hunker down. I gathered all my notes. I put up the
hell yes.
Again, I think it was Valis. Shout out to Valis, I think, who put the spreadsheet or the Google Doc with sort of all the notes, because I ended up using that to take notes as I was playing. And I basically sat and for probably half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, just looked through my notes, went through the memories, and I ended up finding out the 58 that you're able to at that point in the game. I was able to solve the rest of them. It's really proud.
Incredible.
It did take a little bit of by the end there was some guesswork, very educated guesswork that was happening. But yeah, I was able to do it. I was very, very proud. Also, while narratively we did say, you know, it didn't do that much, chapter 2, A Bitter Cold When Everyone's Getting Sick, was so useful because that's the only chapter where you have all the bunks of everybody and it has the number that is associated with the people. And so using that, you actually, from a mechanical standpoint, it's really helpful because you can identify a ton of folks from that chapter.
What a killer unlock. So if anyone has not yet wrapped up their time and you are listening, that is such a key like trick to like look at, because I feel like the thing that I most missed out on in my playthrough is the environmental clues along the way. And I like you mentioned accents, like having the bunk labels, like those are the types of things that like I was not at all able to clue into during my playthrough, that like if I had really known to take my time and like when to go back now that you had all the pieces, I would have maybe been able to pick up on. So great.
I think you definitely would have. Like I think you were playing more quickly, but if you had more time with it, you definitely would have gotten more.
What a bummer.
But yeah, so after you get on the rowboat, well, I'll let you talk through this because,
So we're going to jump into the rumor mill. So this is what is not real, but was Joel's like played interpretation of the experience. For me, it was like I got onto the boat. I flash forward. I get a letter saying like, you closed the case. Good job. And that was like roll credits, game is over. And so my interpretation of what had happened is that you have your opening chapters where it's like, okay, this thing is cursed. We have a problem. We have someone stumbled upon this chest. I kind of built in my mind this idea that the shell is this magical item that brings doom upon landlubbers that hold on to it, similar to Nightblood and Brandon Sanderson, which we talked about last week. And that after the failed robbery attempt, the crew kidnaps the Formosans with the shell, and they're trying to just like make a break for it. They think this thing's super valuable, but because they are near the water, while they're out to sea, the shell falls in, it calls forward these creatures, and then it's just kind of a game of retribution. Like they I think capture a mermaid with them, bring it on board, as well as bringing the Formosans that are still alive back, and they recapture them, and the seashell mixed with them having this kind of corpse essentially of a mermaid is what calls forth the Kraken and the crab riders and everything else. And then the only thing I could figure was that maybe at some point, and I just missed it, the crew begged the captain to like turn around or something, and he didn't. And that's why the mutiny happened. That was my best read of how all of this played out, as though I was hearing the story from a friend. So help us now understand, like Sherlock Holmes, who solved 58 murders in the span of a few hours. What's the real story here?
Okay. Actually, I did have one thing I wanted to make sure to look up, and that was what a lazarette is on a ship. And I know it's in the glossary, but I just didn't look in the glossary. So to clarify, the events of Chapter 8 primarily happen in the lazarette, which is a storage space in a boat, like a storage locker used for gear or equipment. And it's on one end of the boat.
Was it locked throughout the whole playthrough?
That was the locked room. Yeah.
Damn it.
Yes.
Oh, that should have been a clue.
So this chapter takes place in the lazarette. And from my estimation, it kind of takes place concurrently, like just after Soldiers of the Sea, maybe right around the Doom. And so in the lazarette, Philip, who has been put essentially in there for safekeeping because the captain was like, I can't believe this madness, because Philip was saying that they needed to throw the mermaids overboard. He gets put and locked in there because I guess they don't have a brig, because I would assume that's usually where they would have locked someone. And he finds the chest in there, opens it. The chest burns him, and that ends up sort of starting to lead to his demise because his arm gets burned. But he pulls out a third shell. And he's like, oh my God, here's another shell. And you find out that Robert had been in there threatening the mermaids, and basically saying like they needed to send down the Kraken or send away the Kraken, their monster. And he shoots at them, and he's like doing all of this horrible stuff. And Philip, let's see, where am I? Martin, one of the crew members, I think he was the surgeon, maybe, I'm not sure. Martin heads down to free the last mermaid with Paul and Davery. As he dies, he tells them to send it back to the sea, the shell. So as Philip is dying because he's burned, he says, give the shell back to the mermaids, because that's what they're here for. In return for returning the shell, he asks the mermaid to ensure that the Obra Dinn makes it home. And he says, like literally, he says, in return, see it home. So that is why, when you think about the sparkly that's just in the distance of the harbor, the mermaid, after everyone died, did fulfill her promise and her sort of acknowledgement of at least receiving that shell back by returning the Obra Dinn home. So that is why it returned.
That is such a monkey paw wish, like wishing for the ship to get back home. And then it's like, well, the ship's going to make it, buddy.
So it's wild you mention a monkey's paw, because the way you get to Chapter 8. All right, so here's how my ending happened.
Break it down.
You get on the rowboat, you deliver back your book with the notes, you get sort of the insurance check sheet, which is kind of cool because with all of the people, you're like, this person got a commendation, so their family got a bunch of money, and this person didn't because they were dishonorable or something.
Yeah.
So you get all of that. The scene closes and it says 1 year later, and it opens again, and you're at your house. You have a cup of tea in front of you. It's raining outside, and I think it's like your housemaid or your head of household. She hears a knock on the door, and someone has dropped off a package in the middle of the night. And it is the book, the compass, and what looks to be a monkey's paw.
What?
Yup. And so you get a note from none other than Henry Evans, the surgeon from the ship who was one of the survivors that escaped on the lifeboat in the escape after the Kraken. And he, along with, I think it was like Emily and Jane and Davy, who also escaped, they were the ones who sent you this book so that you could figure out what happened to everyone. The Monkey's Paw, you learn when you play Chapter 8, he ends up, because there's a monkey. I didn't know there was a monkey on the ship.
I don't remember being a monkey at all.
Apparently there was a monkey on the ship. He, in the lazarette, kills the monkey so that there is a body there for him to take the hand off of so that you as the insurance person could go there and go back in time to investigate the truth of what happened.
So he knows the compass can do the thing?
Yeah, he's the one who like set all of that up for you. So my question is, I'm just like, why is he having you do this? Like, how did he know to set all this up? I am not entirely sure, but he set it up so that you would have the ability to solve all of the murders and know what happened on this ship.
He really cares that the insurance company pays out these claims to the families. Yeah. And you know what? Good on him. Stick it to the insurance. Like, I'm a big fan of that. Wait, so do we get anything about like where the compass came from?
No, it just kind of, at least that I couldn't find. I don't know if maybe there's more that I didn't. And if anybody happens to know, please let us know. But from my notes, there was nothing that we know in terms of how the compass came to be, how Henry Evans, the surgeon, came to possess it, how he knows how it works. Or I'm thinking, like, if he survived, why didn't he... Like, why did he have someone else do all of this work? I don't know. I'm just confused about that. But that's okay. It's still, I'm willing to just go on the boat ride. You know what I mean? I'm willing to let the Obra Dinn take me where it needs to. I thought it was really cool just to see all of that like come together.
Yeah, totally. Wow. I am so thrilled about this. Like, there's to me just enough ambiguity that it leaves room for fun conversation about these things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm also glad that you played it because I never understood the hatred for the captain. But if this dude's out here like ostensibly murdering, torturing these creatures and not like doing the right thing with these artifacts, like, okay, cool. Now I get the mutiny.
Yes. So I think, it seemed like there were multiple people on the ship who knew that this could be prevented by giving back the shell, by returning the mermaids that he seemed to have like kind of captive. And so, yeah, that for me explains the mutiny pretty well, which was one of our first questions. I think one of the other questions that I haven't fully formulated, but I am kind of curious, like, and this is not the game for it, but it left me curious about how did the Formosans come across these shells? What were they hoping to do with it? Why was it on this ship in the first place? Because the East London Company, I feel like that's the kind of company, and also just London in general, sort of the UK isn't known for returning artifacts back home. And so I'm just like, why? What is happening with the shell and where it's going back to? It seems like maybe the Formosans' home. I'm not sure. So these are things that I don't think need to be answered by the game, but it brought up these questions that I think are fun to think about. But I'm content that the game didn't answer them because I don't think it's necessary for what it was trying to do.
Yeah. Wow. So what are your thoughts on this? I mean, like, you had a more complete experience than I did. Like, overall take on Obra Dinn.
Overall take on Obra Dinn. I really, really enjoyed it. I think I mentioned this earlier. It took me a little bit to fully get into it, but once I did, I was invested. I love a good puzzle. I love feeling like I'm being rewarded for paying attention. I think games that reward sort of my skill in that way, my observational skills make me feel good because it doesn't require me to be, I guess, kind of like Expedition 33. I don't have to be technically, or no, mechanically
I don't
adept
have
at
to time
something.
my parries.
Yeah, I can reward myself for being observant. And I find that's a strength of mine. And so it feels good when games make me feel smart because they're rewarding that. I really, really enjoyed this game. I think the one little bit of feedback, besides some of the little plot holes, I think, that kind of came up about by the end of the game, was I still feel a little funky about how the strategies I used to profile people did feel like I was using some racial profiling.
I was wondering about this. Yes.
I felt like, to some extent, like things like accents or maybe clothing, like if you're wearing a big hat, you're probably an important person. Things like that. I don't necessarily know how you'd get around some of it, but I also feel like there are ways where the environment showed me who they were, that I thought felt more impactful than me being like, this person has tattoos that look like they're maybe from Pacific Islander kind of vibes.
Yay.
And maybe because there's only one person from New Guinea, that's probably the person. Or this looks like maybe a person who's like the most, I don't know. It
forces you to do that.
Made me face some kind of not so fun profiling and stereotypes that
sure.
I was like, I could do without this. And I wish some of the ways to identify some of the people were based more on what they were contributing, their environment, or just different types of clues other than physical appearance. But that would be my primary feedback for the game. By the end, I actually really liked the book. I liked having to walk toward the memories, even though it was a little troublesome. I didn't find the memory body inception super confusing after the first couple times I did it. I think the trick for me helped because I also did all of my deduction stuff kind of in one major go. And so I was like in it. If I had spread it out over more playthrough sessions, it probably would have felt worse. But yeah, I really enjoyed this game. What about you?
Me too. I think for me, we do the tier list. Like, this is probably like an A tier game for me, like
Same.
A top experience. If I had only understood what I was committing to when I left the boat, I probably would have really enjoyed like going chapters 1 through 7, right? Or 10. And like using that like more chronological engagement to like use the bookmark. Okay, chapter 1 is here, bookmark that body. Now I can go find the body and start playing through this experience. Like, I think that would have really helped me better grapple with the experience. I don't know if it would have made me go from A to S in terms of like the game itself. Like, I think there are just some peccadillos I have with it, but overall, I had such a great time with this. And like, gameplay time, for the money, for the intrigue, for the experience, like way worth it. I highly recommend for me. Like, I thought this was great, and I'm really glad that we got to play it as part of the club.
Yes. Yeah. Good choice from the community. Once again. Really quick, just because I think it'd be kind of fun in my nerdy way. Let's go through maybe chapter 1, chapter 10, quick synopsis, telling the journey, the true journey of the Obra Dinn. All right.
By all means. Do you have these notes in place that you can do that?
I wrote them down. I'll go super quick.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So chapter 1, the journey begins. There are 2 deaths based on the cargo being mishandled and put onto the boat. One is a stowaway. They're heading to, quote, the Orient. Love that term. Chapter 2, a bitter cold. Everyone is getting sick. People are starting to potentially get suspicious of animals. We didn't talk about that, but there's some lines there. And they kill a cow for food. Chapter 3, murder. Some men, the second mate, his steward, a few seamen, and a topman, plot to steal whatever is in the chest of the Formosans. Nunzio hears the commotion and is murdered by the second mate, Edward. He frames Hok Sung for the murder, who is a Formosan, Because the Formosans depended on a translator, Li Hong, the captain takes the confession and does not realize it is false. The crew involved in the theft kidnap the Formosans and take the chest that evening. Chapter 4, The Calling. The thieves attempt to row away. Bunlan tries to warn Itbing, the two Formosans. They talk about the chest, the shell it holds, and the danger that they are in. Li, one of the crewmates involved in the theft, catches a little bit of it and shares with the rest of the crew that there's something about monsters. But it's too late. The mermaids are here and they're mad. Itbing opens the chest, which seems to knock out the mermaids. Some of the mermaids get pulled onto the rowboat and they try to go back to the ship. Nichols, the second mate, is shot by a Formosan who probably knows what's up and is trying to prevent further disaster from happening. But in Chapter 5, Unholy Captives, the mermaids are brought onto the ship. While Tan tries to explain the shell and the mermaids, he is spiked, and the cook is also slapped in the face by a tail, causing a chain death reaction. Philip tries to warn everyone to throw the mermaids back overboard to avoid disaster. The captain waves him off and puts him in the lazarette. Chapter 6, Soldiers of the Sea. A storm breaks and horrible spider crab-mounted riders emerge. Oh, we didn't talk about this. They try to head down to the deck or into the ship. Maybe they are headed to the lazarette. Maybe they're just not killing indiscriminately. That's a note that I put editorial
I love
moment.
that.
Chapter 7, The Doom. Some of the crew try to escape, but are killed. The Kraken emerges from the depths. Further disaster ensues. Chapter 8, Bargain. In the lazarette, at the same time as Doom, Philip opens the chest, burns his arm, but finds a third shell. Robert is threatening the mermaids. Martin heads down to free the last mermaid with Paul and Davy, and as Philip dies, he tells them to send the shell back to the sea with the mermaid. In return, he asks the mermaid also ensures that Obra Dinn makes it home. Chapter 9, Escape. Folks try to leave while others plan a mutiny. Thomas tries to warn the captain, but is stabbed. And Chapter 10, The End. The crew attempts mutiny, but Witterell kills them all, and then, in regret, talking to his wife Abby, then kills himself. But Henry the surgeon had the compass before us, sent us the book, and now we are here trying to solve these murders.
What a great synopsis. Incredible.
I'm so proud. It took me so long to do that.
I believe it. Yeah, there was a lot to work through there.
So that is my understanding of the events of the Obra Dinn.
Absolutely incredible. I feel like this is the person you're going to get coffee with that actually knows the story from the rumors that you've been hearing all along, and that was exactly what I needed.
Perfect. So we are done with our time on the Obra Dinn, and I wanted to highlight what we are doing for the month of June. So it's a little bit different. Normally, we do one game all month, but because it's summertime, I know a lot of people have vacation plans. There's a lot of travel happening. We're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to have a month of one-shots to also celebrate queer devs, queer games, and Pride, because it's Pride Month. Yay! So, just to give you a synopsis of the 4 games that we'll be playing over the next month. Each game, I'm pretty sure every game except the last one you can get on itch.io for free, potentially. So if you are a person who can play games on your computer, they're also very low, they're not taxing on your computer. Most of them are kind of more visual novel style. But yeah, I think you can check them out on itch.io. Again, all the links will be in the newsletter so that you can get ready. But I think also low lift financially was the goal that we had for this month as well. So we're going to start on June 3rd. We will have a episode discussing butterfly soup. On June 10th, we'll have an episode discussing Butterfly Soup 2. June 17th, we will be talking about Extreme Meat Punks Forever. And on the 24th, to close out the month of June, we are going to talk about, I believe it's pronounced Serre, Serre, which is a visual novel. I'm super excited for this one because it's by the person who did In Stars and Time, which is one of my favorite games of all time.
An all-time fave.
That's going to be good. So that is our month of June. And again, I'll have all the information in the newsletter where you can pick up the games. Again, I think there's only one that requires a little bit of money, but I think it is under $10. So hopefully, again, it just allows games to be just a little bit more accessible to everyone so everyone can play. And then just as a heads up, we are going to be taking the first 2 weeks of July off for our own summer break. So that's kind of the next month and a half planned out for y'all.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
Any other points of housekeeping for everybody?
Yes. If you want to come hang out, talk about the Obra Dinn, and maybe even a little bit of Lost Records, come and hang out in the Discord on May 31st at 3 p.m. Pacific. It's a Saturday, and we'll hang out for about an hour, just chilling with each other, talking about those games, talking about just what we've been up to, because it's a good chance to just chill with members of the community and have a good time.
Well, thank you as always for joining us at Geeks and Grounds. It's a pleasure to chat through and explore these games with all of you. I gotta suggest that if you're making a bargain with a supernatural creature, time and time again, folks, you gotta read the fine print. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.